Hi students, just providing your weekly update here at the end of week 2. Remember, all week 2 assignments are due at the end of the day tomorrow, that is the end of the day Saturday. So first here, I'm just going to give you some feedback on some of the work that you've been doing this week. I'm going to preview what's coming up in week 3, and then we'll be all set to go. So first of all, talk a little bit about discussion boards and about journals. When it comes to journals, this is more of a procedural thing again. The journals are an opportunity for you to reflect with me on how the course is going. I asked a more philosophical question this week about thinking about your identity, how that relates to doing a history class. Some people posted some great entries, and sometimes I'll comment on your reflection, give you some feedback, kind of continue the thought process that you've started. What I'm asking is that if you want to continue that conversation, to do so via email, because actually once I've graded your journal and submitted the assignment, it's actually quite difficult for me to get back into the journal. It's quite a lot of steps. So basically, you make the journal post, the initial post, I'll comment on it sometimes, and then we'll move to email to continue the conversation after that. I'm all in favor of continuing the conversations via email. So as I say, some of these conversations are really good, but it's very difficult for me to re-access the journal, to re-access everyone's journal. And unless I've re-accessed the journal, I can't see if you've commented again or not. So basically avoid commenting on the journal entries once you've made them, but do feel free to continue those conversations with me on email. Now to talk about the discussion boards a little bit. Again, a reminder, we're Friday now, so if you haven't made your initial discussion post by this point, you definitely want to. You're certainly running late and probably losing points or credit for this assignment if you haven't made your initial post at this point. The basic structure of this assignment is that you make an initial post and then you make 2 comments. And I often grade these assignments after I've seen your second comment come through to give you feedback as quickly as possible, and so I can stay up to date with the grading. But I only do this if when you've posted your second comment, and I can see all the bits are up there, that it's a 10 out of 10. If it's not a 10 out of 10, then I don't grade it. I leave it to give you the opportunity to improve it. Maybe you need to go back and proofread something you wrote because there are some spelling or grammatical errors in there. Maybe your comments aren't as detailed as they should be. I'm not going to give you an 8 and clear that away when there's still some time in the week left for you to come back and work on it. What that means for you is that if you've made your initial post early in the week, which is ideal, and then you've made your 2 comments on another thread a little later, and you haven't seen a grade come through for that discussion, and it's been a couple of days, maybe you want to review that. You probably want to review that and think, okay, is there a way, let's look at the rubric here, is there a way I can improve? Because I may not be at a 10. So that's just something to think about. I'm going to give you that time during the week to improve your discussion board work if it's not at a 10 out of 10 when you submit your second comment. A couple of aspects of sort of etiquette policies or netiquette policies when it comes to commenting. It's fine and good to compliment other people. It's difficult to convey emotion virtually. It's easier for people to feel criticized. So it's good to say, I agree with you. This was really interesting. I hadn't thought about this before. So that's really good to do. But it's important to remember that primarily we're discussing a historical text. And so if most of your comment is saying, I agree with you, or I thought this was really interesting, and talking about what a good job the other person did, that's not really going to get you, or that's probably not going to get you full credit. You want to be, the role of the comments is to continue to build a conversation. We're trying to have conversations about these historical texts. And so you want to be, when you're commenting, Like I say, I think it's good to say, this is good, I agree with you, or this was interesting, I disagree with you. It's totally fine to say that as well. And then to build on the conversation. I agree with you or I disagree with you because of this aspect of the text. Hey, this was a really cool interpretation of this part of the text. Had you thought about how this other part of the text relates to what you're talking about? And then you talk about that part of the text. So you want to make sure you're building and continuing the discussion, not just talking about what someone had posted previously. So that's the first point. Make sure you're building the discussion. Secondly, if there's a question on the thread that you're responding to, it's good manners that you respond to that question if you're the next one posting on the thread. And there are a couple of distinctions here. First up, there are typically, yes, there is. Sorry. So there are two questions that someone is responding to. So let's say someone's responded to the question in the Epic of Gilgamesh about the Neolithic Revolution, and they've also made a comment on the question about what this text tells us about how women were viewed in this society. And let's say there's a conversation going on about the question about women. Someone's saying, people are making different points. A couple of people have commented on this thread before you. The last one there has asked a question. If you're going to post about that question, about the question about how women were viewed in this society, it's good manners to respond to that question. Even if you say, I'm not sure, I only have a basic idea, you should at least acknowledge that question. If you just kind of go in there and blow past it and start talking about something else related to that question, that doesn't help us build a good conversation. So if you're responding to that same question and someone has asked a question in the conversation, you want to be responding to that question. Now, if you want to talk about the other question that the original poster responded to, if you want to talk about the Neolithic Revolution, that's absolutely fine. Feel free to go ahead with that. But just don't railroad a conversation by kind of ignoring a question. If it's the same topic that you want to talk about. Okay, so that's kind of the week in review. And now the week coming up ahead, it's going to be pretty interesting. We're going to talk about 3 different societies. We're going to talk about ancient Egypt, the Assyrian Empire, and then the Babylonians and the Persians. So we're really kind of setting up the ancient Middle East. And we're seeing how these little Neolithic settlements that we've been looking at in week 2 are now going to develop into pretty sophisticated political societies. And so we're going to look at how that happens. And we have videos to look at. There's a slightly longer video that's on the Assyrian army, so just be aware, most of the videos in this class are pretty short, but that's a slightly longer one. It's more like 20 minutes long. Textbook reading, as usual. Some people have had a few difficulties accessing the textbook. What the publisher's rep suggested that seems to help some people is that if you change your browser, you clear your cache, you clear your cookies, typically that gets you where you need to go. It seems to be the case that if you access Pearson Revel, the textbook, through Blackboard rather than through the Pearson website, that also makes it easier for you. So just kind of keep those things in mind and obviously reach out to me and especially reach out to Pearson. Typically they can help you more than I can if you have any difficulties with the textbook. If you're having any difficulties with the textbook, you should definitely have talked to me by the end of next week. Because that, if you haven't, and then you come to me with problems, that suggests you haven't been following along with the textbook reading during the semester. So make sure that you've worked out how your textbook works and how to access your textbook, certainly in the next couple of days, if you haven't already done so. So the textbook, we have the videos, and then we have 2 more assignments. So this is a busier week for us in terms of assignments, so keep that in mind when you're planning your week. We have a writing assignment that asks you to think quite critically about the source. So we just did outlining this week, something that some of you might be familiar with from your high school classes. That's pretty useful, but we're now going to try and do some slightly more independent thinking, kind of draw out some of the information that's implied in the text, but isn't obvious in the text. So it just looks like a one-page worksheet that you can kind of dash off, but it does require some attention to detail. It requires some serious thinking. So make sure you're allowing yourself plenty of time for that. We also have an essay. Our first essay of the semester is going to be due. There are 3 questions, one about the Neolithic Revolution. That should be pretty self-explanatory. One that's about government, and so that's going to be pretty much focused on the week 3 material. Ancient Egypt, ancient Assyria, Babylon and Persia. You're going to want to talk about the different ways that those empires governed their subjects. And then there's also a question about religion that asks you to think about the relationship of religion and the state. So you're going to want to think about these Neolithic settlements. You're going to want to think about the Egyptian pharaohs, their relationship with religion, and then also Persians and the Babylonians, their relationship with religion. With the essays, a couple of things to keep in mind moving forward. One, make sure when you've written your draft of the essay that you look at it against the rubric I've provided. If you don't know where to find the rubric, then make sure you ask me. And the second point is that if writing is something that you're not confident about, or something that's a little bit new to you, you haven't done recently, make sure you use the Writing Center. Use the Eastern New Mexico University Writing Center. Ask them for help constructing your paper. I know the journal articles and the discussion boards is kind of a more casual style of writing, but my impression is that there are some of you for whom writing a formal essay like this at the college level, that will be a little bit of a challenge. So make sure you're using all the help that's available. The university provides these services so that you can succeed. If you can't get it to the university, at least show it to a friend or a relative so that someone else can read it over for you, catch some mistakes. Don't make this something that you're kind of cramming at the last minute. And with both of these assignments, the writing assignment and the essay, if you are in any way unsure of what I'm looking for in the essay or the writing assignment, make sure you email me and ask. I'm more than happy to look at the essay and to look at the writing assignment before you turn it in. Okay, hope this is helpful. Hope you're enjoying the class so far. Don't hesitate to reach out to me with any questions, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon.